Welcome to Poetic Words of Faith podcast show. I am your host, Tanya Lewis. This is a platform where I share encouraging messages of God's love with spoken word. The purpose of this podcast is to change your mindset from victim to victorious. Each week, I will cover a different topic and share poems that I wrote related to that topic. Listen in, get inspired and motivated while your soul is elevated. Hey, beautiful people, I hope you are ready for your weekly dose of encouragement and some spoken word. Let's jump right in. This week's episode is called What Season Are You In? Part 2. What season are you in? Part 2. Last week, I discussed the topic, What season are you in? And I talked about recognizing what season of life you're in so you won't repeat the same mistakes from the last season. I was led to go a little deeper into this topic with a part 2. Just to give a brief recap, I shared with you Ecclesiastes 3 and 1 that says, To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under the sun. Just like the natural seasons that we have throughout the year, there are seasons in life that we will go through. A season is defined as an indefinite period of time which can last days, weeks, months, and even years. In Ecclesiastes 3 2 through 8, in the New King James Version, it says, A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to gain and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. Those verses describe all of the seasons that we will experience at some point in our lives. But not knowing what season we're in could cause problems and delay the blessings that God has for us. We should prepare for the season ahead by putting ourselves in check of what's going on around us, in us, and to us. In last week's episode, I suggested taking an assessment of the things that's been going on in your life within the last 90 days and make the necessary changes so you can do the right thing in the right season instead of doing the right thing in the wrong season or out of season. Did you know that the seasons of life can resemble the natural seasons? What do I mean by that? What I'm saying is the characteristics of winter, spring, summer, and fall can look like what we're experiencing in our lives. And we need the Word of God to get us through every season. In the winter, the trees, flowers, and grass are dormant, and it appears that nothing is producing or growing. There are winter snowstorms that develop that can bring cold, harsh temperatures that will make it difficult to function. It is the same way in our lives. Spiritually, we can be in a cold, harsh season where it appears that nothing is growing or producing and the road ahead seems rough. Just like in the natural, it's hard to drive down a road covered with snow and ice. It can be difficult to arrive to your destination when you are faced with roadblock after roadblock. Then there's spring, and when there is a then there's spring, and it's a rebirth or renewal of the leaves of the trees and the flowers bloom, and you see signs of restoration. It is the same in life. You can be in a season of restoration where relationships are restored. There is renewal in your mind, body, and soul, where you let go of things in the past and that are no longer producing in your life and start over. Next, there's summer, where the heat is blazing. It's so hot that it can lead to a mixture of storms, thunderstorms, hurricanes, and tornadoes. These storms are so powerful that they can cause death and destruction if you don't have shelter. So, as it is in the spirit, when the enemy will bring the heat with the storms of life that rage out of control, and you feel like you have nowhere to go and no one to turn to. but you can run and hide in the secret place of the Most High and find refuge under his wings, like in Psalm 91. And finally, there is fall where the temperatures cool down and summer storms finally cease. In life, the enemy will send storms our way, but we have the power to speak to the storms like Jesus did in Matthew 8:23 to 27. In the middle of the storm, Jesus was asleep. He was at peace even though things seemed to be out of control. That's what Philippians 4:7 looks like in action. Peace surpassing all human understanding. The storm was sent as a distraction to bring fear upon the disciples. And that's exactly what happened because they panicked and started speaking fear instead of faith. In verse 25, they said, Lord, save us. We're going to drown. Then Jesus had to correct them and said to them, You have little faith. Why are you so afraid? Then he spoke to the winds and the sea, and it obeyed him because he used his words as a weapon and spoke faith to that storm. And we can do the same thing to our storms. We have the power to speak words of faith into the atmosphere, and things will change. No matter what season of life you are in, there will be storms that you have to face. There's a period before the storm, there's a time when you are in the midst of a storm, and there's a time after the storm. What can these storms look like in life? A great example is when the pandemic hit. When everything shut down, it caused a lot of problems and challenges, which forced us to do life differently. In my opinion, it brought on any and every kind of storm you could think of. It caused loss of jobs, loss of life, shortages, chaos, separation, isolation, and the list goes on. Paying attention to the signs of the time will help you prepare for the storms of life. Just like in the natural, when you see the rain clouds roll and the sky becomes dark, it's an indication that a storm is coming. We need to be on alert that there's a devil roaming the earth, causing the storms of life to try to keep us from getting to the other side of what we're standing in faith for. So don't give up or give in to the enemy's demands. Continue to stand on the word of God. The most powerful weapon that you possess is your mouth. Your words are weapons, and the word of God is a sword that will cut down and shut down the kingdom of darkness. Finally, I will leave you with this thought. Be prepared with the word of God before the storm, in the eye of the storm, and coming out of a storm, so you are not moved by the distractions that are designed to keep you in fear. And now, moving on to the spoken word part of the podcast. This there's a couple of poems that I'm going to share again. I've shared these in a previous podcast, but it's worth sharing again because some of you may not have heard them before, and it's okay. I'm going to repeat my poems if I have to for those who haven't heard them. And this first one is called "Are You Ready for the Storm?" and it's based off of Mark 4:35 through 41. Are you ready to face the storms of life when the waves start to hit you from the left and the right? You don't know when it's coming, so you need to be ready with your emergency kit packed because it's going to get heavy. Things may be going great for now. The sun may be shining without a cloud or a doubt, but the weather is so unpredictable, and you should always prepare with the word by your side when there's a change in the atmosphere. Before you see the storm clouds roll your way, start laying out those scriptures in your pathway to protect you from the rain and the forceful winds. And when they come down and knock you, and when they come and knock you down, just get back up and try again. When that storm comes, don't you start running in fear. Stand firm with your feet planted, knowing that God is near. Use your faith as a weapon, and it will soon come to pass. The storm is only temporary, it won't last. God wouldn't give you more than you can take. You will get through it when the earth begins to shake. He will give you the strength that you need to stand in the eye of your hurricane and still succeed. You will be able to face your storm with confidence by commanding the winds to be quiet and the waves to be still. You have the ability to speak to your storms when they come unwarned. You will notice a change in its course and you will be safe from harm. Storms only come to make us grow. If we didn't go through storms, we wouldn't know of God's grace. Use your storms as an opportunity for improvement. Don't stop whining and complaining about how you got into it. These storms come for a purpose to help us improve as a good steward of God's service. The only thing you can do is to be prepared before it comes. You don't want to be caught without a place to call home. There's a place that you can go to find shelter from the rain inside the secret place of the Most High, where victory always reigns. Okay, the next one I'm going to share is called A Song to Sing. And this is a short poem, but I felt like this is important to share because you should be able to still sing a song in the midst of your storm. We all have a song to sing. So let's sing our praises to the King who reigns on the throne in victory. He died on the cross for the whole world to see, that he made a mockery of the enemy. Don't be ashamed to magnify his name. Sing a song of praise, but don't do it for fame. Thank him for the things that he has done. This battle that you're fighting is already won. Whatever you do, don't stop singing your song. Keep on singing because it won't be long. Your blessing is on the way. Get ready to receive it, but you must do your part in order to achieve it. The next one I will share is called If You Believe. And this is basically talking about, what do you believe when trouble comes? Your belief is your faith, because you should walk by faith and not by sight. Do you look to the skies when trouble arises? Do you walk around and look at the ground? Do you worry until your vision gets blurry because you want the pain to stop in a hurry? There is someone who is willing to help you. The load that you carry is too heavy for you. I know he is able to give you peace and joy unspeakable that won't cease. Are you willing to let him take you there, to a place where you don't have any cares? All you have to do is let him in. He will be your best friend. He already knows what you're going through. Everything that he says is true. He's waiting for you to make a start, to take the first step and do your part. He is the only way to live life stress free, and it can only happen if you believe. And the final poem I will share with you is one that I've shared before in a previous podcast, and it's called The Secret Place. And this is based off of Psalm 91. Where do you go and where do you turn when you have nowhere to run and your bridges are burned? Where can you find peace surpassing all understanding, to find love that's unconditional, not demanding? There is a secret place where you can go to lay down your burdens and let them go. That place is in the Most High, where you can hide and abide. When all of your friends are gone and you have no one to call on the phone, you can go to that secret place where all of your concerns will be erased. You don't have to worry. Let him carry your load. He knows what the future holds. Let his hands shape and mold. His plans always work, they never fold. Take that first step, then he will take two. Put total trust in the Lord. He'll always come through. You don't have to stress and run in fear. When you feel alone, that's when he's near. In his presence is where you want to be. That is the place of complete liberty. It is where the truth will set you free. You will find out who you were meant to be. Let him come in and invade your space, to be bold with confidence, to run your race. Be not afraid to go against the grain. One moment with him, you are forever changed. I hope you were inspired by this week's episode. What season are you in? Part 2. Remember, you are not a victim, you are victorious. Thank you for listening to Poetic Words of Faith podcast show with Tanya Lewis. If you've enjoyed this episode, tune in next week for more inspiration and motivation. If you would like to connect with me, send an email to poeticwordsoffaith@gmail.com.